you doing, Jesse?
Good, George. How you doing?
I'm tired. I went on vacation, got rejuvenated, and then now I have to get up early again in the morning.
James, how you doing?
You go to Hawaii for 9 days, and then Vegas for a few days.
Enough of those.
And actually got to drive this car, a Ferrari 458.
You're really good. Okay.
Where'd you get to drive it?
The Las Vegas Speedway.
Oh, nice.
It's one of these, baby.
I printed mine. It's like a mile. How long's the track?
Not very long. I could only get it up to
Otherwise, I would.
Carter scared me about having printouts and writing anything on them so that, because she goes, if you do electronic work, you can't ask for the electronic.
I got to run it for 7 laps.
I probably shouldn't be that nervous.
With an instructor.
All right.
No luck?
Okay, gentlemen and lady, it's 5:30, and we'll call the meeting to order now.
An automatic.
And the first thing on the agenda is
Thank you.
reviewing the agenda with those who remember Jeremy from last meeting. He was introduced by Carter. He was shadowing Carter, and Jeremy is now given the position of taking this over, so he will be our staff person for the police commission. So thank you, Jeff. You'll take over and take care of the agenda.
Thank you. This week, the chief will be introducing the new captain and staff. We'll also have a presentation on EPD recruitment with Becky DeWitt and Lieutenant Sean McGann. And following the break that will be happening between 6:55 and 7:05 will be a presentation on the Eugene Police budget by the Finance Manager Elizabeth Weber. And then finally we'll have the revised police committee vacancy at 7:35 to 7:45, and with the chief's presentation between 7:45 and 8. The whole meeting should be rounded up around 8:15. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Tamara Miller, and she's going to conduct a public comment session.
If you're in the room and you'd like to speak, please fill out one of these blue forms and bring it to me. Speakers will have 3 minutes. I'll hold this sign up when you have 20 seconds left, and this sign when your time is up. First, we have Majeska C. Screen. Yes. Apparently, yes.
Have a seat at the table, please.
Really handy to me.
Hello. Hi. Well, I'm going to make a comment about something that maybe Carol would have said, but she's going to use her 3 minutes for something else. So this is something that we've been talking about, her wearing her hat of icon in the Court Observer Network. And I sort of consider myself part of that network, too. And myself wearing the hat of ACT, A Community Together, which has to do with community engagement and community involvement, among other things. So this is about the budget. I noticed on the agenda the budget, but there's nothing in the packet online about that. I don't know if you're going to be having a handout with more information. And I understand historically the police department budget has been not in very much detail, or some say not very transparent, or something like that. So that's just, sort of an issue. And the particular matter that we're wondering about has to do with police overtime. Particularly, I think Carol's probably mentioned it to you in the past, about noticing that it seems that some officers in particular may be sort of taking advantage of the overtime situation in municipal court. And I gather that has to do with the scheduling personnel policy that you all have. But apparently some cities handle the court time in a way that doesn't use up so much overtime, and the overtime dollar amount is apparently rather large, and some people are apparently making a really nice annual salary out of it, which, but anyway, because it's budget time, it seems like that's a time when some community people and media might look into things in a more detailed way than usual. So just wanted to raise that for you all, that maybe there's some questions or things you might want to have an eye on today when you have this opportunity with this guest. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, I have Juan Carlos Valle.
Didn't realize I was out so quick. Good evening, Commissioners and Police Chief. My name is Juan Carlos Valle, resident of South Eugene. Although I wear different hats out in the community, tonight I am representing the League of United Latin American Citizens of Lane County as Council President. LULAC is a national civil rights and advocacy organization. You will be, or you will have been, living under a rock to not know the developments in Ferguson and in New York. The unfortunate ambiguity and lack of clear direction to both civilians and police officers has taken the lives of many people. Recently, the lives of Michael Brown and Eric Gardner, and that's just to name two of the dozens. Recently, dozens, if not hundreds of residents, students, and allies held vigils at both University of Oregon and at least 3 peaceful demonstrations at the Free Speech Plaza in Eugene. I had expected that at least some of you would be at hand supporting these peaceful demonstrations in support of the victims and their families. I am disappointed, but not surprised to see you missing in action. But I know that you are just waiting for some kind of direction from the community on how to respond. I urge you to immediately review the policy department chokehold policy and the fleeing suspect policy to ensure community values and the protection of those less likely to have a voice. By that I mean communities of color, and to review them with equity lenses. Your support is needed to ensure all police fatalities between civilians and police officers are recorded accurately and shared with the FBI. As previously requested by me and other groups while at your table, there is still a need to develop a policy prohibiting racial profiling. How many lives are you willing to compromise by not taking action? In my observations, it takes courage and leadership. Your time is now. You are and have been in charge. You are the only ones that can make the changes needed to secure my safety and the safety of those who look like me. You and only you. The time is now. Thanks.
Next on our list, I have Riley Weber.
Good evening. I am a citizen of Eugene, and I'd just like to point out, I have no experience public speaking, but it's become very obvious that there's a problem with abuse of authority. And I look around and I'm just really, I think that there should be a transparency of the standard of police work. We should stop focusing on harassing little guys like homeless and focus on problems where there's sexual abuse on campus. I think that there should be a mandatory homicide list and mandatory unalterable footage body cameras for officers on the force so that there is accountability and responsibility in being a police officer in the field. I trust you guys, or at least I'd like to trust you guys, and I really want to trust you guys. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Carol Burke-Caldwell.
I'll stand, I sit way too much. I have some folders, so I have some colorful folders for you. Carol Caldwell, 2510 Augusta. Colorful folders, appropriate given the local color therein. These materials reveal 3 separate third-party complaints that I have filed with the police auditor. All have a common troubling thread. I'd observed 3 trials hearings involving people who believed police had punished them. Retaliation for being recorded. Maybe true, maybe not. I wasn't there. I'd hoped the allegedly independent police oversight system would request through investigations via proper channels, i.e. IA. I know complaints aren't your purview, but recommending policy is. I shared concerns before CRB last Tuesday, troubled that Police Auditor Gissner was denying the chance for CRB to delve into this. I knew that CRB could supersede this block if interested, and several did request, after my public comment, an opportunity to review. I'd emphasize these cases have far-reaching, broader community significance, given many people do record police, as discovered by Chief Kearns last Halloween. An officer shared that Chief, on a ride-along, noted how many people were recording police. Likely many believe this common practice is legal with little or no risk, oblivious to the world of hurt that Billo, Osario, and Gardner endured, as revealed in your packets. At his trial, ICV shown many times revealed police issued the first order that Billo, who was recording the event, step back. He complied. He complied with the second demand. Third police demand given to step even further away would have put Billo out of range. Perhaps that was the intent. He objected and was quickly tackled. Taser barbs shot into him, then a rapid second tasing. Jail 3 days, fine $1,200, which he paid. Wow, did he pay. Total time elapsed between first order to step back and double tasings, just 45 seconds, warp speed. Please step up to the plate on this, for it is solely left to officer discretion on whether a civilian attempting to record police stepped far enough back, fast enough. Without clear delineation defining safe zones for both police and civilian recorders, this is a perfect storm ripe for abuse and potentially ever more costs to our city. Many others could experience what these 3 people endured. Matthew Fogg, Chief Deputy, retired with U.S. Marshals, on Fox TV recently said that people have the right and should be allowed to record police, as upheld also by high courts. An EPD policy is needed to protect the need for police to not be unduly interfered with, but also protect the public, protect them from possible punishment or retribution. Please pursue this, or Chief could implement a responsible, community values reflective policy to expedite matters soon. I hope so. Have a great holiday and a fabulous 2015. And by the way, feel free to recycle those colorful folders, not the contents, for your kids or grandkids to enjoy. And I thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
If there's nobody else wishing to speak, that will conclude our public forum. I'll turn the time back over to Bob.
Thank you. Our next is Commissioner responses to the comments or your own response or your own issues that you'd like to bring forward. So, anybody care to start? Volunteers?
Well, I'll start.
Okay, James.
First off, thank everyone for coming out. Your comments and stuff were well received. There are a number of issues that's going on, and one of the biggest issues that we have is a disconnect between the people that we are paying to serve us and some of those ones that are not acting in the best interest of the entire department. EPD has a good police department. They have a lot of good people in there. And there are a lot of good police officers around the country. I know I'm a former police officer. I didn't abuse anything, didn't seek to abuse anything, didn't set up with a mindset to go out and do any harm to the public, because that was not part of my charter, that was not part of my oath. However, there are bad elements that do infiltrate the police department. So my State Advocacy Commission has been contacted by the governor, Governor Kitzhopper, and he wants to have a conversation with us. We're going in there. He wants to know from my Advocacy Commission what type of proposals that we may have for his consideration to implement. And we have a number of them, but I'll just go over a few of them and reserve going into details till later on. One of the first ones is that on Oregon law currently, there is a flee and felon statute that still stands. We're going to address that, and we're going to advocate that that is removed and replaced with the current federal statute that prohibits fleeing felons. Shoot, well, if you can't catch them, shoot them. So that's not going on here, but we want to make sure that we correct the records because it should have been done. However, it's still on the books. Sometimes laws get embedded and they are serve of no use, and they still have to stay on the books. For example, in New York City, they have a law on the books that says that you cannot walk backwards and chew peanuts or chew bubble gum in Central Park. What was that about? I have no idea, but it's still on the books. So there's a lot of work to be done. The other one, the next one that we've been advocating, and this is from a federal level that we're pushing. One is the total demilitarization of police departments. And again, I can go into some detail about that, my reason for that. Mandatory psychological and polygraph testing of all police applicants before hire. And also looking at any involvements with police shootings or allegations of racial overtones and stuff be immediately sent forward to the state's attorney general, which will be reported up to the Department of Justice. These are just a few things that we're talking about doing, the conversation that we're having. Again, it has nothing to do specifically here with EPD, but it's a national conversation that has to be done. While a lot of people don't see the police EPD or this police commission out doing things, we are doing things. You don't have to be out and raise signs and stuff to be effective. Sometimes if you have the right finger on the pulse, then you can create an atmosphere where you can actually move things, because that's what's going to make the change, is to be in a position where you can actually move things. Thank you.
Okay. Joe, did you have your hand up?
I didn't, but I suppose I can go.
I thought I saw somebody over that way.
Yeah, this was, I see a lot of sort of folded arms and maybe some angry looks out there, which is, I think, great. It's been, I guess just from a personal note, the reason that I guess if you look at it, I'm the only person from the Occupy group who actually got involved in taking a position that has anything to do with the city government. So it's an advisory position on a commission. There are lots and lots of opportunities for people to get involved. There was a comment, and I am going to throw this back at you. There's a comment about people not being at demonstrations. The 3 minutes right here probably will have more effect than the entire demonstration. So there's an opportunity for participation, and I would hope that you'll take this back to the groups that you're working with and have more people get involved, because that's how you change things. Get yourself a seat at the table. In terms of, there was things about the budget. I would have liked to have seen a copy of the budget included in the packet. That would have been enormously helpful. I know where to go to get it, and I'm actually very pleased that we're doing that. Looking at this, the budget this meeting. I'll leave it at that. There were a lot of issues that were brought up that I would, that are really key for me, and hopefully we'll, now that the public is coming back and saying, "Excuse me, we need to look at this stuff," maybe we'll look a little bit more at some of these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim?
Joe, thank you for those comments. Those were very good and very right on target, I think. I would like to see more people, as you said, get involved with the government, because that is the way to change. And you're right, these comments are heard by us, and you're right, those could have more impact than any of the meetings or vigils downtown. James, I'm really glad that the governor's called on you to bring some things forward. I think it's a great idea, and I really support a lot of what you had to say that you're looking at. As for the deaths in Ferguson and New York, I wanted to ask the chief if at some time tonight, if you can comment, or at some point in some of our meetings, what impact those have had on EPD. Just the opportunity just to kind of hear if it's creating any changes, any issues, any ideas that are floating around, any looking inside, to see, are we doing things right? just maybe firming some things up. And I don't know if tonight's the right night to do that, or maybe during your comments, that would be great. I'd love to hear anything that's happened. I think I'll pass right at that point.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for everyone who's here and who spoke. It's good to see this participation and hear from people. And keep coming back. We're talking about interesting things right now. Whether there's going to be cameras deployed in downtown, recording what's going on, what the future Eugene policing is going to be. So keep coming back. We got some ideas and some policies that could be addressed: chokehold, fleeing suspect, recording police, whether there should be a policy with that. That's the kind of stuff that the Police Commission can talk about and affect, and thanks for that. The other thing we're talking about right now is cameras for police, whether they're going to be carrying individual cameras, how soon we can get that, and hopefully, I saw a study of 5 departments who were police were carrying individual cameras on them, and they looked at the complaints, and the vast majority of complaints resolved on the side of the police having the objective information from the cameras, and that's kind of what we've heard over and over again. It's a good tool to be able to objectively say what happened. I just had 3 reports from one incident that were all quite a bit different from each other. I wish there had been a camera so we could see what actually happened there. It's nice to have that objective proof or objective view of it. Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. For my part, I listened to comments very carefully, and I'm aware of the national concerns that have been expressed by some folks about police interaction with the public. I know that it serves justice and the people and the police to everybody have a dialogue about this issue and work out whatever concerns people have to everyone's satisfaction. I hope that can be done. That's my prayer. As far as individual complaints I heard mentioned here tonight, I'd like to remind everyone that we, as a body, do not and cannot, by statute, by our charter, look into individual complaints. So we may have anecdotal information come to us from time to time about individual issues that happen out on the street, but the proper venue for that is the Civilian Review Board and the auditor, and of course Internal Affairs and the Police Department. So if people have concerns about individual actions out on the street, those are the 3 avenues you can pursue, whichever one you choose, or all 3 if you choose. So I'll make that available to you. I'd like to thank everyone again for coming out in the middle of what might or might not be a windstorm. They've been promising all day having a great windstorm, but we haven't seen anything too bad just yet. Let's hope it stays. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, the loss of life in both cases in Ferguson, Missouri, and New York, very, very unfortunate, big loss for the families. If the one thing that I hope comes out of this, and I think it already has, is raising awareness about the circumstances and the issues in those cases, and allowing dialogue to go forward about that. I think that's the one good thing that's come out of it. I know that body cameras have been brought up a lot in the national media in regard to especially the New York case, well, also the Ferguson case. And I wanted to just commend the chief for being out in front of that. And we started talking about body cameras several months ago before it was out in the national media as a topic of interest. And I guess the good thing about that is if the federal government's funding some, maybe the ones that the department was planning on getting can be funded with other funds than they thought they were going to be funded with. In regard to the chokehold policy, that policy was reviewed by the Police Commission several years ago, including when former Police Commissioner Juan Carlos Valle was on the Police Commission. Never a bad idea to review it again if there's interest from folks in this group that have not reviewed that before, but it was reviewed several years ago by the commission. And I find the conversation about demilitarization of police departments especially ironic in light of the fact that the federal government has continued to give or sell former military equipment to police departments, and now they're talking about demilitarizing when they're the ones that equipped many police departments with that gear. I just find that very ironic, so I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Chief?
Mike?
Right here.
Thanks, everybody, for being here and for speaking. It's always good to hear what folks are thinking. And if you don't tell me, tell us what's on your mind, and we don't know. So it is helpful to hear what's of concern to you. We've reduced our, I don't know if we're going to have any data on this tonight, but we've reduced our department overtime usage considerably in the last 4 or 5 years, and a lot of that is in municipal court by coordinating better with the court. It's an imperfect thing, but it's better than, we're probably using more than $500,000 less each year than we were at the beginning of the downturn of the economy. The issue that Carol brought up about videotaping police officers is always concerning when you hear it. There's a comedian that I like who talks about the advent of new smartphones and how many zillions of photographs he has of his own children, and he likes to say that he's taken more pictures of his kids than his dad ever looked at him. And so that's the experience of police officers on patrol. There isn't anywhere we go, and particularly in the downtown core, where we are not being videotaped by somebody's cell phone. It's just amazing. So the concept that we would arrest somebody because they're videotaping is like arresting somebody for looking at us. You know, it really isn't the case. And I know the stories when you hear one side sound remarkable, but when you hear what happens during the trial or when you read the police reports, what you see is that in one instance, for example, police were sent to a dispute in the downtown core. The subject that they needed, looked as though they needed to arrest, standing in the street, was armed with a pistol. And they asked the subject, everybody else got back and away, and they continued videotaping, had a clear view of the officers. Asked one person to get back and gave him a very clear place where they asked him to go so that they wouldn't have to be concerned with him while their focus is on a guy they may have to arrest who they know is armed with a pistol. Turns out he was armed with a pistol. So that's a lot for them to focus on, to have to be worried about someone who's disobeying a pretty clear police order. The best solution is for people to obey police officers when they're asked to step back. Another case was very similar, except it didn't involve a gun, and so while the officers had to wrestle with one person that they were sent to deal with, they had to worry about this other guy who was standing way too close to them and presented a danger to them while he was videotaping with his cell phone. He didn't need to be there, and he deliberately refused their orders to step back. So it is good that as a community we're worried that police might arrest people because they're being videotaped. The reality is an officer in public is being videotaped all the time, and we've grown so accustomed to it that it's hard to imagine that an officer would arrest someone because they're offended that they're doing something that everybody's doing. But we need to be aware of it, so it's okay that we're bringing it up here and talking about it.
Thank you.
We're fairly progressive here. We're not in a place that I wish we were yet, but we're fairly progressive in terms of our concern about how we police communities of color and protected classes who are in Eugene. And we don't do as good a job with this area as I wish we were, and we aren't as engaged with those communities as much as I wish we were. We've already got our entire department trained in perspectives on profiling. Those who aren't trained are new officers who haven't been introduced to it yet, but will be. So it's a requirement for everybody. Central to the whole analysis, the whole scientific study of bias-based policing or racial profiling is this reality or this phenomenon known as implicit bias. where all of us have subconscious and unique biases that we may know about, we may not really have a good grip on, and those implicit biases probably affect our judgment. Well, central to this training that we provide is some discussion and training on addressing implicit biases so that we're making objective, professional, evidence-based decisions while we're on the street. And we'll continue providing that training. We've also been looking at body-worn video cameras for quite some time. They're becoming more and more affordable, and we've piloted about 15 of them in the field for the last few months, and we will find a way to equip our officers with body-worn video. We have a full implementation of in-car video systems, which we've had since 2007, and I don't think there's another police agency in the state that has as comprehensive a program as we do. And we have the most intrusive police oversight system in the state of Oregon that does a pretty good job of catching our mistakes and ensuring that we investigate them properly and that our employees are held accountable when appropriate. That combination of things is pretty rare in Oregon, and I think we as a community can feel grateful that we've got that, but as I said earlier, we aren't where we need to be yet. We still have a great deal more to do with community engagement, and the experience of Ferguson, which you asked about, has, for every police officer in the nation, has probably raised or alerted us that when you think you're doing things well, something like this happens and brings clarity to a gap, a cultural gap, chasm that occurs, that's occurring in our society that's not okay. And so it's a good wake-up call for all of us, and we'll benefit if we grapple with it. We get our mind around it, decide that we're going to change the way that we do business, improve on that, and find ways to partner with our different populations so that we're serving them as well as we should.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the people that come in. I'm with Joe so much. It does make a difference hearing from people in this meeting to take the up to 3 minutes, a real big input. And I thank Carol for her concerns and being on the Citizens Review Board. She does spend a lot of time with the Citizens Review Board, which I really appreciate the input. The Ferguson thing was very unfortunate. I was on vacation at the time, and I'll tell you what, I don't think I've ever read more news stories in my whole life. I'm going to use the word studying that and empathizing and trying to figure out and getting very confused. It seems as I get older, I just get more confused. Brought a lot of stuff to light for me. The CRB, going to the CRB to the Police Commission, there was a concern of if there's any policy on holding hair, which I don't know whether there is or not, but that committee wanted me to bring it up here. And also the citizens filming police, if there's a issue with that, or what the policy, if there's a written policy on that. I'm very thankful to the Eugene Police Department that they have in-car video and body cams. The last situation we reviewed, the reporting party had a totally different view, clear down to being dragged across the ground with the hair, being sworn at by the policeman, and having his head bashed into a police car, not once but twice, and without the body cam and the other cams, it would have been real difficult. And in this, there was absolutely no evidence that any of this happened. And I don't know, as the reporting party reported, had some issues with the police even young, and therefore the reporting party story was so much different than the video and the audio recorded, and I am so, by the way, thankful that there was, I think there were 3 in-car videos and 1 body cam on this subject, and it, as I said, we came away from a totally different story, and the reporting party thought that the tape may have been altered not by the police but by a third party. It's interesting. I think you tell your story once and you start believing, but I'm very, very thankful for it. And look forward to more in-car videos and body cams. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and especially our speakers. I think it's really important to hear from the public at this meeting about what your thoughts are about what is going on in relation to the police department. I also want to say that with these incidents that have happened in the country, you know, I look at our police department and look at, we've had in-car cameras, we have body cams, we're talking about putting up cameras, we're always talking about adding more body cams. We're ahead of the game, I think, across the country in doing that. And even the oversight between the Civilian Review Board and the Police Commission, I think we do a great job here, and the department does a great job of always trying to look at these issues ahead of everybody else. And so I think that's really important, and I want to thank everybody again for coming tonight to the meeting. I think it's great having this much public involvement. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a point of clarification, George, the Civilian Review Board wanted us to respond to this request about...
It always, I like to go back and forth, so it would be good to know if there is a policy on that, and if there's any policy on pulling hair, particularly one person in the room was very concerned about.
Would the chief's answer on filming police be sufficient for you?
Well, I guess it would be good to know if there's procedures and there's policies. And if there is a policy on it, and I did hear loud and clear, it's like, you know, it's like looking at the police. I do witness it, I mean, some, and obviously in this particular incident, we saw one person video recording it. But if there's any, you know, let's say written policy, it would be good to know. And if not, there's a possibility of it, so it can be within policy or out of policy in case there's any definition. And also whether there's any policy on controlling a subject with, you know, there's chokehold, there's hair hold, you know, there's knee in the back. I mean, what the policy is on that. There was a request for that. Okay. So it would be good to know, get feedback on that.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is approval of minutes, so we've got to, commissioners, do you have any in your packet? Have you seen any corrections that need to be made? And you don't have a correction in the minutes in the previous meeting? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Approved by Joe, seconded.
Second.
Approved by George. All those in favor of approving the minutes as posted, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you. On to the next item, we have the introduction of new captain and staff, and I'll turn it over to the chief to present that.
Okay, do you mind if Captain Meisel comes up to the table?
Absolutely.
Do you mind joining us at the table, please?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Captain Sherry Meisel, and she comes to us from the Detroit Police Department in Michigan. And Captain Meisel was an emergency medical technician, and thank goodness decided to become a police officer, and has worked her way up through the ranks. She's been a detective, a sergeant in charge of detectives, a lieutenant in charge of detectives. When we first met her, she worked in the chief's office, preparing policy and many other things. And in her last assignment was working in the precinct in investigations, also worked patrol, obviously. And she will be assigned to our investigations division beginning the 1st of January. We have this great opportunity where we have captains in every division. Captain Meisel gets here, and she can spend time, a month or so, becoming oriented to how things are in our city. And then in January, she'll take over that division, and Captain Durr will become the assistant chief for the police department.
Hello. Untied, all these great things you've done.
I have a great advocate.
Yeah.
He's always saying such nice things, but I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to having contact and interaction with all of you and the community. I'm looking forward to jumping in.
Well, welcome to Eugene.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, Captain Meisel did really well in the hiring process, and impressed quite a few people. One panelist, I don't know if you know this, said, yeah, in fact, I think she'd make a great police chief here. Which is certainly our objective. And I asked her, we went out to lunch after the process, and I asked her, so how is it you keep getting these amazing assignments? And she says, I think it's because I'm just so damn thorough. So it wasn't a difficult decision to make. She's got a lot of promise for our organization.
I've been really fortunate in my career, had a lot of great opportunities, and this is really the top opportunity that I've had in terms of being able to learn and do new things. Excited to be here.
Great.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody have any other questions? I've been answering a lot of questions.
Now, you're from Detroit, who has had, it seems like, a high crime rate and tremendous, I think it's the biggest municipality that has gone bankrupt.
Yes.
And so it must be, well,
I've had experience with resource challenges.
Well, that's why she was hired.
That was it. Yes, it had afforded me the opportunity to really experience a lot of different things within the police department, not just the investigations, but be cognizant of the global situation, working in the chief's office, writing policy, looking at from that perspective, but also, the resource issues there were severe, and hopefully now they just got out of bankruptcy today, actually, so hopefully their tide is turning there as well. But I understand that here people have been very on top of the financial situation, so hopefully it'll never get like that here.
Gene?
Yeah, Captain, welcome to Eugene, Oregon to begin with.
Thank you.
Chief has spoke very highly of you at our last commission meeting and stuff, so we're all excited to meet you. I'd like to just ask one question. Eugene, our police chief, is big on community policing. Mm-hmm. He's very engaged with the community and stuff. So we have a unique type of police department from the top. What are your thoughts about actual community engagement, getting out with the public? Listen to their concerns. Probably, and I don't want to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
I don't even want you to answer this. I just want to kind of put this out that the kind of aggressive and progressive policy that our police department has stuff is one that's pretty unique versus other communities and stuff. So it's just kind of like a little, like, okay, well, this is not Kansas or anything like that. It's a little bit different, and you have a very, it's a diverse society, but at times there are a lot of issues and stuff, and interaction with the public is, as you can tell from some of the comments and stuff, is really important stuff in order to keep moving forward. So,
Well, actually, that's something that I did look at when I was actually going through the process of putting in my application to make sure that not only was I a good fit for Eugene in my mind, but was Eugene a good fit for me. And that's something that I really appreciated about the police department and the community involvement. Part of what I enjoyed most in my job in Detroit, regardless of what the actual position was dealing with the community and people. And I used to go to different community meetings, depending on what my position was involved in some different groups. When I was at Homicide, I was very involved with Parents Against Murdered Children, that group. And so I agree. I think that that's really key and important to have a community that's engaged and relates well with the police department. at all levels. And I think Chief Kearns definitely, sets the example in showing that it starts from the top down. So I'm excited to be part of that.
Welcome to the team.
Thanks.
Tamara, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just interested, since we've worked on so many policies related to technology recently, what kind of technology was being used in the department you were in Detroit?
Well, they used the video, in-car video, and they were just starting to look at different body cameras. They were doing a test project this summer in a department of about 2,000 officers. They only had about 18 cameras that they were piloting at the time, but that is something that they were pushing forward. Eugene is definitely ahead of the curve. I was hearing you talking about that, and that's been in my research, my experience in terms of looking at our department. And so I'm excited that we are ahead of the curve and working on that.
Thank you. Jim?
I know most people will probably ask you what the differences are between the communities and the police departments, but I'd like to know what the similarities are, whether it's the police department or, and I'm not going to let you go the easy route of knowing the resources, because that's already been discussed, but some of the similarities either in the police department or the community even that.
Absolutely. Actually, I've been talking a lot about the similarities. Detroit actually did have a lot of community involvement. There was a lot of different groups that were involved, a lot of people that were very engaged. So that's very familiar to me here. We also had a civilian oversight board. We had a couple of consent decrees. So we had the Justice Department also overseeing us. So we had a lot of engagement at various levels. And I think with as engaged as the community is here and is involved, that's something that I can relate to very well. And I think that's a big similarity. And I think the diversity of ideas and the culture is very similar. We also had a very strong city council that was very involved, really tried to be thoughtful about different decision-making processes. I mean, Detroit's had its issues with some of the politicians, and I don't even want to go there, but in terms of the process itself, some of that is very similar to me, and there's a lot of things that I can relate to. So certain things, I come here and people go, oh, and I'm like, okay, I can relate to that.
Great, thank you.
Joe?
I just want to know if Eddie Murphy's still on the Detroit Police Force.
No, but Gil Hill was actually the boss in the movie. He was actually an inspector at homicide. It was before my time. But when I first got to homicide, we actually still were in those offices that were in the movie. So.
Thanks for that bit of trivia. Okay, Chief, you had some other
Well,
introductions?
you really haven't heard much about Jeremy yet. Jeremy's
Okay.
been doing reports, high-level reports for different places for the last 10 years. He's been working for us for 2 years. He has a master's in business administration, and while Carter is assigned to the planning and development department for 9 months, he's going to be working with us. And he's been a pretty impressive gentleman to have working in our crime analysis unit these last 2 years, and I look forward to having him working with all of us now.
Thank you.
And then when we move on to the next subject, I'll let you know a little more about.
Yeah, we are ready to move on. I think we've used this portion of the meeting to the next section, which is a recruitment by Becky DeWitt and Lieutenant Sean McGann. You would come to the table, and I'll let you do the introduction.
All right. Yeah. This is Becky DeWitt. She works in HR, and she helps us with hiring and personnel decision-making. She's our HR professional, and that provides quite a bit of good guidance to all of us. She's been working with the City of Eugene for 20 years.
No, I've been in human resources for 20 years.
Yes. That's working with the city since 2005. And she's helped us professionalize the organization pretty effectively in the last little bit. And then Lieutenant McGann was promoted this last year to lieutenant. He's also a lieutenant colonel, Is that accurate? Yes, sir. Right? In the United States Army. And he's also been a very commanding figure within our organization for quite a few years, since 1992. He was on our SWAT team, our Explosive Disposal Unit, member of our Honor Guard. He was an FTO, Field Training Officer, and has had several other assignments. And right now, he's our Night Watch Commander on weekends, Wednesday through Saturday, and is in charge of the K-9 team. And they're here to talk about recruitment.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you. Tonight, we thought, to meet your interest of hearing about the hiring process and the recruitment process at the City of Eugene, we thought it might be helpful for you to get a snapshot of the police officer recruitment process. So I'll take about 8 to 10 minutes to do that. And then Lieutenant McGann will be giving you an update regarding some of the recent recruitment efforts and some of the exciting future recruitment efforts and investments that the department is making into the recruitment of all individuals into all of the positions within APD as well. And then we'll certainly allow for some time for questions and answers at the end as well. So, great. Next slide, please. So as you can see, and as you can imagine, in order to effectively complete the professional position of police officer, it's extremely important that our police officers have an extremely high level of integrity and an extremely high threshold of skills in a number of areas, including communication skills, certainly cultural competency, as well as the physical strength and judgment needed in order to be able to effectively serve and protect and serve our citizens. And this is just a short snapshot of some of the qualities that we focus our recruitment process on assessing and ensuring that officers have. And as you can imagine, very few of these qualities can really be measured in just an application review and a short interview process. And so my goal tonight is just to give you a snapshot of all of the affirmative steps the police department takes in order to ensure that the individuals that fill these roles are effectively able to serve our community and citizens. Next slide, please.
I apparently having technical difficulties.
There we go. So this will be a little bit hard to read, so I apologize, but I'll take some time verbally going over each of these steps of a recruitment process so that you can have a sense of what it takes for somebody to even get to the point where they're hired. As you can imagine, Lieutenant McGann will talk about certainly all of the long-term and short-term efforts that we'll be doing to fill the pipeline for individuals that we recruit for. And then once individuals apply for the City of Eugene, the first things that we do within the police officer process is to review to ensure that they meet the minimum qualifications and the qualifications needed in order to be certified as an officer with DPSST. So our goal is to really get a large qualified candidate pool. On average, our candidate pools range between 250 to 450 candidates at any given time. And our recruitments are often impacted by sometimes the timing of the postings, timing of the testing, et cetera. And so I'll be sharing some statistics with you tonight, but those statistics do vary from process to process based on additional details. As you can imagine, with an application, there's very few pieces of information we can really affirm around an individual. We're limited to what they're telling us in terms of whether or not they are able to perform some of the functions of the job. And so we've worked to design a process that complies with all of the federal and state guidelines, as well as to ensure that it meets equal employment opportunity standards. And so the process I'll be describing to you, part of our role as the Human Resources Department is to work with the police department and partner effectively in making sure that the process does align with that. I will also emphasize that the actual decision-making process at each step of the way is completed by both the chief as well as our sergeants that he has appointed as hiring sergeants. And so the decisions and pass points through each steps of the process are EPD decisions. So our role in human resources is just to help design and partner on these processes. The written testing and POPAT phase. POPAT stands for Police Officer Physical Abilities Test. That is one of the integral key phases at the beginning of a process to ensure that candidates have the ability to write effectively, observe things, be able to effectively use their judgment, effectively have some of the technical skills that are needed in order to effectively perform the duties of their role. So the written testing includes a 2-hour multiple choice exam, as well as an opportunity for candidates to watch a video and report based on what they see on that video. And what those that are members of EPD do grade the reports that are determined from that descriptive writing exercise. And what they're looking for, in addition to basic grammar skills, is also and good writing skills, is the ability for somebody to accurately report what they're seeing. And that's a key. If somebody's not accurately reporting that information, that would be something that would lead them to fail that portion of the exam. The police officer physical abilities test is essentially an obstacle course that candidates run through. There is a video on the EPD website of that. I encourage you to take a look at that at your convenience. Essentially, it simulates for a candidate to chase a suspect, grapple with a suspect, as well as subdue a suspect. And so we're not using individuals or people in that process. It's really just an obstacle course where they're running, jumping over some obstacles, using a push-pull weight machine, as well as jumping over some vaults. And so it is a challenging test, but it's also important to ensure that individuals can safely complete the role. And so that physical abilities test is a part of that. So by the time we've received applications, on average, we have about 60 to 70% of the people that have applied show up to the written testing portion. Sometimes individuals drop out just because they thought the timing of the testing would work for them, but it doesn't. And other times we don't know exactly why they're dropping out. They may have changed their mind about it after coming to career night and seeing whether or not this is a role that they're interested in at this time. So at the written testing and POPAT phases, we usually have about 60 to 70% of the candidates at that point past that. So using an example of a recent process, we had 179 individuals sign up for written testing, and of those, only 67 were invited to the interview phase. So there's also a pre-screen background phase that is completed at that point as well. Then the candidates move on to an interview process, which is a board interview with sergeants as well as officers within the police department that do a board interview. They ask a series of behavioral and situational questions. So in addition to the technical skills that we've already affirmed are at the written phase, that board is also looking for strong communication skills, strong problem-solving skills. Is the individual able to think quickly on their feet? Do they use good reasoning? There's some questions that get toward integrity, and so it's helpful to get information about that as well. So within that interview process, we have about 25 to 35% of the candidates that make it to interview, usually pass the interview, and that's where the board has recommended that they believe that the individuals could be successful at that role. Then we move to what I consider the most important phase of the process, and that is the full background phase. Within the background phase, we have trained investigators within our department who can focus on looking into all of the areas of a candidate's background to ensure that their work history as well as personal history have given them the attributes that would allow them to be successful in this role. So it is a very long, invasive phase for the candidates. However, we believe that the interest of the public and the interest of our citizens outweighs that, and so it is a good thorough phase that is completed, and recommendations are made up to the chief for final approval before candidates move forward to the next phase. You'll notice that we mentioned a conditional job offer in this slide. Once a candidate has passed a background, in order to make sure that we're complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act, we ensure that we issue a conditional job offer to candidates, because the phases that are happening after that may delve into some medical information with candidates. And so we do ensure that we issue that, and then we move the candidates on to a psychological assessment phase. The City of Eugene contracts with the psychological firm to assess whether or not a candidate is really prepared for some of the emotional aspects and the power with which they will be entrusted in the role of police officer. And so That is a highly important phase for us as well. I should have mentioned at the background phase, we usually have about 60 to 75% of the candidates that enter that past that, and at the psychological phase, about 60 to 80% of the candidates that enter that past that. So there's a reason that this is shaped as a funnel. The goal is to continue to funnel to the most qualified candidates by the time we're done. And then a final physical for candidates, and then those that pass that are hired or placed on an eligibility list for future hire. So, any quick questions on that so far? Yes.
So at the top, applications, you get approximately 200, you say? You like to have about 200?
You get on average about 250 to 450, depending on the process.
And under each phase, what percentage do you get to the, what percentage drops? Do you know the number of people? Let's say there's 300 and that is to get one person or 10 people, or what's your or rejection rate? I don't know. I'm looking for the proper word for that.
Sure. At each phase, it varies from process to process. I will mention that sometimes we have a stronger candidate pool than others. At the application review phase, the majority of people that apply are clear on the minimum qualifications and meet the minimum qualifications. However, we also ask our candidates to turn in a pre-screen background form, and it's our first test regarding their ability to follow instructions, and so we do lose some candidates within that part of the phase. I can tell you based on other recent recruitments we've had a recruitment where 428 people originally applied, 320 turned in everything they needed to turn in to be considered, and they were invited to testing, and of those, 179 showed up to testing. So there's a percentage that significantly drops at that point in time, and again, that's often due to a scheduling in terms of whether or not the schedule works for them. And within that testing phase, following that testing phase in the pre-screen background review, 67 were invited to interview, and then 24 were moved to background, and then 15 were moved to the psychological evaluation. 9 passed that phase, and of those individuals, 6 were hired. We do sometimes lose candidates that self-selected or go to another agency in terms of the process.
Thank you very kindly.
You're welcome. All right, next slide.
Questions?
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Still on the questions. Anybody else have any questions about this page? Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more right after that, I think. There we go. Again, because of the role of the police officer, there is an 18-month probationary period that's assigned. Often this is a new role for individuals that they may not have experienced in the past, and so EPD has done a particularly good job at ensuring that they put their candidates through a very, very rigorous probationary process. And that includes everything from a DPSST academy, as well as a phased internal academy to ensure individuals are clear on EPD policies and procedures.
So what does DPSST
SST
stand for?
Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. And so that is the regional academy that's up in Salem that trains police officers throughout the state.
Okay. Are they once they're hired, are they automatically deferred to the DPSST, or is it depends on allocations and time?
Once they're hired, it depends on when the next DPSST academy is, and so sometimes they begin with the EPD and they do some preliminary things with the training department internally, and then they move up to DPSST. But they're required to attend and pass DPSST in order to be certified as an officer in the state of Oregon.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get a frame, it depends on the availability, of course, class dates that they have at the training center. Then
correct.
Okay,
correct. And we try to coordinate and ensure that we're hiring in time to be able to reach spots. But we do have to prove that an individual is hired in our department before they're eligible to attend DPSST.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then again, as I mentioned, there is a phased internal academy and then a very rigorous field training process that includes daily observation reports and quite a bit of feedback from both field training officers as well as supervisors throughout their probationary process. And then there is a final probationary review board review that is completed by each officer before they pass probation. In addition to the hiring process, there's a high level of care taken by the department to ensure that by the time somebody has passed probation, that they're appropriately equipped and qualified to serve our community. And so, next I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lieutenant McGann so that he can tell you about some recent as well as future recruitment initiatives.
Thank you. It's good to be here tonight. And go to the next slide. Thank you. I'll talk about that in just a moment. The recruitment team, as Chief Kearns pointed out, been here for 22 years. One of the reasons why I joined this was, or why I put in for the team with my supervisor on that. Who's here is Mr. Tim Shuck, is the division manager, and then certainly Chief Kearns for this initiative, is that I want to try to influence the future of the department and work with my counterpart, Sergeant Scott McKee, to do that. In order to do that, we're starting to develop the team. Next week, we'll actually be doing interviews to bring 6 officers on board so that we have a fully staffed recruitment team. We have a communications supervisor, Cynthia Althamus, out at 2 in Chambers, and we'll be bringing on 2 communications specialists as recruitment team members as well. The big part of this is that we're looking to go in a new direction and build upon the strengths and successes that Becky and her team have already done, and we do that in partnership. One example, we met yesterday to talk about this meeting here today and the future, and then have potentially monthly meetings where we can sync up and try to synchronize between the police department and human resources, look at our near-term and our long-term calendar. What we want to do is establish a 1-year to 3-year plan so that we can look at areas where we historically may not have gone to. Those are potentially at different universities, partnering up with different groups within town and throughout the state of Oregon. And I can tell you that there's a lot of excitement throughout the department in this initiative. We had 11 officers apply for these 6 positions. That's a significant amount, quite frankly, for an ad hoc team like this. One of the things that I found out when I was looking at this, I've been in the military, as the chief pointed out. I've also been here for a long time, and I learned that the word recruit has a Latin origin meaning to grow again. And I did take Latin in high school. I didn't learn that in high school, though. I can't attribute it. However, at the most basic level, our goal is to grow again by getting the word out about the benefits of a career at the Eugene Police Department. As we move forward with the recruitment team and we get out into those areas that I've just touched on, we want to make sure that we build the department in a direction that reflects the communities that we serve. And one example of that, you'll see right up there on our first slide, which is Women in Blue. Recruiting isn't something new here at Eugene Police, but we're going to work to refine that. And this was something that happened last year. We had 20 participants in the Women in Blue. It was specifically focused at trying to bring in women police applicants to talk about the variety of job responsibilities that are within the department. We had patrol detectives. They were exposed to special teams. And what we were looking at was to help them be successful in their quest for a career in law enforcement. As you can see on the 5th bullet there, 19 of the 20 currently interested in a career in law enforcement. And I can tell you that 2 of the 20 who actually attended and graduated from the program are currently police officers within the state of Oregon, one at University of Oregon Police Department and one in Salem Police Department. And I would still propose that that's a success and that we have 17 others out there who are interested in looking into a career in law enforcement. Are there any questions about the Women in Blue program? Yes.
How many female officers are currently on in the Eugene Police Department?
I I actually don't have that information, but I can get that to you.
I'm guessing 15, but we can.
15, so there's about 180 officers, so that would be a little bit less than 10%.
15 police officers, however, we do also have sergeants, lieutenants, and a captain that are females in addition to that 15. So I believe there's 6 to 8 additional.
Okay.
I'll double check those stats.
On that, do assignments vary? Are they regular, patrol cars and do that kind of thing, or are the assignments skewed a little bit?
As far as females within the department, I could give you the exact numbers, but I can tell you at least my experience and what I've seen in the department. I have female officers on the patrol teams that I supervise at night. I work with female sergeants, actually one of mine is Sergeant Julie Smith that I work with. Sergeant Lisa Barong does our administrative duties, really interspersed throughout the entire department. Sergeant Chris Marta is our supervisor of the explosive disposal unit, who I worked for before I was promoted. So really you can see it's a wide range across the department. But we can give you the exact numbers and then also talk about positions at another time.
Okay. The one last question I have is just in general, I guess on the surface there's probably acceptance, but I'm wondering overall, what's the level of acceptance among the rest of the officer, mostly the, not the command staff, but the rank and file officers, to women in these roles. Do you see, is it generally pretty good, or do you see some issues?
I would say it's very good, and that's one of the reasons why we have them throughout. It's really, as we call it, the thin blue line, that there are no, we don't differentiate. It's those positions, and those officers were honored to work with everybody that we work with.
Okay, great, thank you.
So if you can go to the next slide, please. And I did bring some of these along. These are new presentation materials, actually recruitment materials. One of the key things that you'll see here, if you look up there at the one on the left, and I'll pass this around here at the front, along with some of the business card-sized handouts. If I can give those to you from that side of the table. I only have 2, but as you can see, they're in English and in Spanish. I'll pass one around here so you can get around the area there. And also some of our recruitment business cards. It's a new initiative that we've done with the program. And as you can see, we're using our officers, Officer Jessica Dalton on the left, on the recruitment material in Spanish. On the right, you can see a member of our honor guard. These type of materials will be handed out to officers, and we really look at officers, community members. As I said, we're at the initial stages of the recruitment team, and we're still building it. As we bring in those 6 officers, I can tell you there's going to be a tremendous amount of ideas that come in and energy, and will help the direction of where the recruitment team is going to go. But these, I think, really reflect not only the community, but also get the word out about when we have a hiring process. As you can see on the one on the left, it actually delineates the time frame for the hiring process. So we're excited about these, and we think that it will really help at the officer level to get the word out. Do you have any questions about the recruiting materials?
I don't have a question about the recruiting material, but I do have a comment. A few weeks ago, I was the chief and we attended a seminar and stuff, and we kind of rode around a little bit together. And I will say that the chief produced one of those to a gentleman that was working, Latino gentleman, and asked him if he would be interested in joining EPD, and gave him the card. And I'm like, wow, the chief is out there doing recruiting missions too. How cool is that? So he is involved with this, and he is a difference maker. So I saw it with my own eyes, and I was like, that's pretty cool. So we understand that perhaps maybe that gentleman in particular that he gave the card to would not be interested in, but he may know someone else that would be interested in. So it's good to get the information out, say, well, here's an opportunity. If you're not interested in, perhaps you might know someone. So, Chief, kudos for you.
That's great to hear, and that's exactly what we're hoping those cards will do through the future, and for officers, and potentially a family member who may refer another family member, or they know somebody who's talked about it or maybe considering a career in law enforcement. And those lead into our career nights. We recently had one of those in October. We'll be working those more on the recruitment team. We had 90 participants, potential applicants, show up for the October 22nd career night. We'll be having another one in January, and that will really be one of the first ones, that will be the first one where the recruiting team will co-present, and we'll go in there and start working with the newly selected officers, myself and Sergeant McKee, and of course along with Becky and her team. When they go into those career nights, they receive a tremendous amount of information, and it really prepares them for that funnel that you saw that Becky described, so they can understand more about preparing for the POPAT if they haven't done that yet, what to expect. The variety of positions that we talked about within the department, patrol, detectives, canine, explosive disposal unit. And we talk about the qualities that we're looking for, the problem-solving skills, the interest in the role, conflict resolution skills. Are they a team player? Do they have integrity? And officer safety, of course, which really the POPAT reinforces. So we're moving in a new direction with the recruiting, and I think you'll see more of these type of materials come out, and we will continuously get feedback and refine these to make sure that they go out to the right areas. You saw a picture earlier. The last one on Becky's presentation was Officer Glenn Gilhuber. It's a technical age. Information really is a lot of power. And with the digital era, we're going to leverage that digital technology. One of those things is videos, and I'd like to, if you can bring up the Officer Glenn Gilhuber video, one of our officers within the city of Eugene. I'd ask you to watch this video because we're talking about recruiting, if you can just pause it for a moment. And when you watch it, look at it. If you've seen it before, I think you'll enjoy seeing it again. It's really that good. But take a look at this as the perspective of a potential applicant and ask yourself if it would help you relate, and also ask if it would help you understand the rewards and the challenges of a career in law enforcement. So if you'd go ahead and play that, please.
Police work is not an MMA fight. There's no points awarded. There's not a hand raised at the end. There's no belt given out. It's a fight for your life, and it's not a sport.
Hello, Eugene Police Department. Do you have any type of idea whatsoever?
The way people stand, the way they posture themselves, the way where their eyes are looking. When you get good at assessing those movements and those features, it helps with that quote-unquote sixth sense. This is not one of those careers where you just want to show up and put the uniform on. This is something where you want to be successful because you truly can have lots of impact on the lives of other people.
He's a quiet guy. He's not in it for prestige. He's not in it for attention. He's not in it for anything else other than to go out and do his job and enjoy what he does in order to help out the community in general.
I was born in a hospital in Racine, Wisconsin. On May 4th of 1977, my mom and dad came to the foster home and they brought me home without knowing it. You know, I was very loved by lots of people right from the very get-go. My next door neighbor was the chief of police, and I would remember as a little boy him coming home with his copper-colored patrol car with the two individual red and blue lights on the top. I found him fascinating. I found what he did fascinating. What he did for a living was secondary to the person that he was. Sports was a huge part of my life growing up, on up through high school and into college. I can't tell you how many times I've went back to martial arts training and some of the experience I've had in competition to be able to teach fellow officers how to do things, and especially in terms of teamwork, conflict resolution, getting along with other people, doing everything that I need to do to get myself ready to play is very, very similar to what I need to do to be successful as a police officer. All the things, a lot of the qualities that are necessary to be a police officer, I think I was slowly developing them along the way without even realizing it. I had a buddy a close friend a childhood friend that came up to the state of Oregon to come play football here.
Well, his friend was married to my catcher, and so she told me, hey, my husband has a friend, he's a really good guy, he's from Wisconsin just like my husband, so they're good Midwestern guys and you might like him. So, instantly I felt like he was a really kind-hearted person, and just from there, just started getting to know each other better and realized that he was as great as she said and more.
My wife had a fantastic 4-year career pitching for a major Division I university, and just a wonderful person and a wonderful athlete. I'm hoping that the combination of the two of us for our 2 kids will give them the opportunity to be athletic and play sports just like we did. If I don't look the part, if I don't look like I stay in shape and take care of myself, how am I going to convince anybody else that I can take care of them? I think it all starts with how you prepare yourself each day for work, both your uniform and staying in shape and being physically fit and ready physically and mentally to do the job.
He's a good father, good family guy. Coaches baseball, works out in the gym with everybody else, as you can see, and everybody likes him. He's just a good-natured guy that's always got a smile on his face no matter what.
I'm extremely proud of what he does, and not just because of the job that he does, but how he does it. That I know he's doing it morally and ethically and in a way that would make his parents proud, and that I'm hoping that God's proud of as well.
One of the things that got me into this career is I love serving people. I love being a part of a community and trying to make the overall community better.
Okay, so we got a couple different things going on here. Do you have an actual insurance card?
She's got a car full of kids, and so it's one of those things where you can get everybody out of the car and tow the car, take it from them, and just let them walk down the sidewalk. But is that something that you'd be comfortable with? You have to enforce the laws as you know them, but you don't have to just completely ruin people's days and grind them so far into the ground that they can't recover. I've been very fortunate to be able to be involved in a career where I can enjoy my work, but I can enjoy my family even more.
All right, buddy. What are you swinging at?
Coaching baseball teams, being out in the backyard with them, keeps me grounded and helps me realize that one is just a job and the other one is real life. Family, friends, and children will be affected if I can't turn things on and off and leave things that need to be left at work. There are kids out there that are neglected and maybe don't even have a mom or a dad, or one parent's gone, or they're being raised by their grandparents, or whatever combination of things that could happen. I want to put my arm around them and let them know that there are people out there like me that do care. In our community, a lot of the times it's the same people that we're dealing with over and over and over. It's very rarely do I go a day where it's all brand new people. Some people just weren't dealt the same hand, and life isn't as easy for some people as it is for others, and I need to treat people accordingly.
With 40 cents in.
You can have a huge effect on those people just because you see them so much. If you can find something positive to say about them each and every time you deal with them, I'd like to believe that that's at some point going to add up.
And if you need our help, then you call us, because I don't want to see this.
We don't just make the community better because we take bad people off the streets. We make the community better because we help lift up some of the people that don't have as much as we do.
Really, you're great. Great job from Officer Gil Huber. We also have a new police officer physical agility test video that shows candidates how they can prepare for it and what to expect when they go to the ProPat. And if you can go to that last slide, we won't show that one right now, just for time. And so just to wrap up, before you have any questions and answers, we'll be looking at that 1 to 3 year calendar as we get those 6 officers on the team in short order. We're looking to have a stream or work with communities to have that pipeline of officers and candidates that we can bring into the career night, that we can bring into the application process, and build upon existing and new relationships with community organizations. And finally, I think one of the key things is that the recruitment team is Eugene Police Ambassadors so that we can grow again as an organization. And that completes my presentation. If you have any questions, Becky and I would be happy to take them now.
Good question, George?
So what is the range of beginning police officers? Pay. What's the pay?
Oh, I should know that. I believe it's...
Approximate.
I believe it's between 45 and 65, I believe, but I will triple check that for you.
No, I don't need, that's close enough. Thank you.
I do believe that's on on one of the materials or one of the handouts that actually goes out to the potential applicants. I remember seeing the range, but I can't recall it myself right now.
What's the age range of eligible recruits?
Anyone over the age of 21, there's a minimum age of 21, just from the ability to carry a weapon, and there's no top range.
Okay. So high school diploma is the minimum, or do you want some college in addition?
The minimum qualification is a high school diploma plus 3 years of post-secondary education or experience or related experience with an additional minimum of 1 year of public contact experience. And so the department has determined that it's extremely important for its candidates to be able to resolve conflict verbally as well. And so that public contact experience is given as part of the minimum qualifications in order to ensure that they've used communication skills in some role.
Okay. So what would be an example of public contact?
It could be anything from front counter work at McDonald's to any sort of other type of customer service role to other policing work. So it's a wide range.
If I can add on that, one of the key things that happens at the career night is also another video. It's a very short one, and it goes in and it has different career fields because these are where our current officers are from. The retail industry, like Becky was talking about, we have forest background, sales, and we even have a gold miner. And it goes through, and that way we can talk to the audience. And somebody may not think that their particular background may lead to or qualify them for a career in law enforcement, but it shows how diverse we are, and that's just a profession.
What about past police contacts, ruling people out? I know where DPSST falls, but are Eugene Police's standards different where people get weeded out before they even get to the DPSST?
No, previous felony convictions or Class A misdemeanors within the last 24 months would be an eliminator because that is the DPSST standard. Convictions are considered as part of the full background process. However, the full story of that is looked into and determined what the appropriate level of determination is from that. Just contacts or arrests are not held against individuals. Circumstances around that may come into play.
Are expungements considered?
No. Circumstances around it may be, but expungements are not.
Yeah. First, let me congratulate you. I think that the film or the commercial and stuff is very well done. Stuff, it's always good to hear a human side that's other than what we're normally used to make the headlines. The headlines always go, if it bleeds, it leads and stuff. So, and then everybody has a chance to pump it up to whatever they want to. So it's always good to have a human side to police officers. I have to also admit that I just returned from Portland, And the standards that EPD has already set and has established is much more different day and night between EPD and Portland Police Department. They've got strong resistance against body cams using where our department has sought out that and already have fielded that same thing. And so it's a mindset on where you see the officers' involvement with the community, because you can't separate the community and consider that you're going to be one entity versus another. And that's one of the things that I see that EPD is really working strong in order to do. And that film there is exactly indicative of that, because it's showing a human side of police work and interaction and stuff. I think it's very important. So it's not perfect, but it's getting there.
Thank you, James. Jim?
Well, first thing I wanted to say was I was very sad to hear that he was born on May 2nd, 1977, which was right around the time I was graduating from high school, so that made me feel very, very old. But I also want to ask, are there, since really the only requirement is age of 21, are there any alterations in any of the physical, mental, written requirements for age or sex?
No.
So they all have to meet the same standards for all the way up and down the line? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and move to the break, and you have one, go ahead.
So getting back to expungements, so does an expungement count against you or not?
The department does not consider the expungement as a conviction because it is expunged. However, the department does, in the whole background process, consider all of the circumstances of an individual's life, including anything that they've self-admitted to.
Okay.
Okay, we'll take a break and try to be back here as close to 7:10 as we can.
You were hoping that us older guys would have a shot, weren't you? I couldn't give us a chance.
I couldn't do the physical test anymore.
I was more worried about the mental test, George.
Next night. I had mental ones.
You spoke really well. Very nice job.
Carter always had technical difficulties too. That's not unique to you. Right.
I'll send it.
She had, sorry. Yes. Are you coming back? Okay. Well, yeah. I've looked for arbitration. I know this, but I'll pull them up and just so you've got them at Jeremy can see. Please do that.
I'm not sure that's a bonus. I taught high school part-time for 2 years. Less sugar for the
Our leader
No, it's really good though. I think it's, I don't
The only thing that's different okay, so the thing of me is there's a cloud. That's not going to be my department, that means. Does this have the lithium ion batteries?
Yeah, I don't know.
I figured, years ago, I bought some little lenses so I figured it and I'm sure that it's probably possible to look at other ones.
I just didn't,
That's it, yeah, that's all.
Something we joke about. Yes, and of course, and one of
I don't know, you would know better than I would.
If you want a cool one for your kids or grandkids, we can switch them.
I don't have either, so.
My kids would love that one.
Which one? You just switch the love one. Do you have like one child or two or what?
One.
Oh, no, you just take the whole thing. It's okay. Oh, you wrote on that one?
It's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they're so organized. Every now and then I can kick it in and be organized.
Thank you.
So you said you only have one child, but I give you
Yeah.
another.
He would
I got a
love that.
bunch of these cheap at Little World. Great. Cool.
Cool, thanks.
You bet.
There's at least enough to say.
Yeah.
Go forward. Both of them are bastards. Saying no.
This is
I think my son would like this one.
feels like it was
Thank you.
favorable.
Oh, actually, he might like that one. Here, I'll take that one instead.
They show they control the whole presentation.
Thank you.
They brag that they can
How are
conduct
you
anybody
doing?
anytime they
Have you?
You know, I should have found out.
Yes, you got a point there. That's right. I didn't think about
Lauren Reagan actually, in the admittedly just came out today as his last week. Had a good article about it. Back to defendants testified there.
It's a nice little camera.
surprising to me.
This allows you.
I felt really bad by the kid too. Classic guy.
Yeah.
But I was going through like this. You don't know. You don't know. That's right. It's just that it happened at a really bad time. Bang, bang, bang.
Oh, about the candidate.
Plus the other nice thing about it, like just the other stuff.
I mean, like, no, but it's still okay. I don't get it.
The other thing
There's a lot of time on you have no time for that. It's really like a 21-foot rule.
Yeah. So I've been trying to get the captain back.
And also, and it's cheap to start out. Probably undershooting. He didn't mention that making mistakes. He's not worried about that. That's the first thing I thought of was responding to that. Yeah. Just talking to people.
Yeah, 19.
Oh, yeah, with the recording.
Well, she did.
I'm curious about it. I'm just going to come private. It was use of force. Dealers shoot to kill.
Well, you know what we can do is we can move shift. Oh, that's why.
That's a bullet. It's got a huge. Did you see my car?
Tons of different kinds of bullets. I really like guns. I like bullets and stuff. And you can have huge impact on the effect that happens against the person.
What did I do? I made a mistake a couple of times.
It's 9 shots, full clips, unloaded, 21 shots.
Oh yeah, that's really one.
Something there.
Jim, sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to stop your conversation.
No, he's a agenda.
What?
He likes it.
Yeah. He's looking really happy that everyone.
At a certain point,
There's an audio recording that says they tell Is there a video too? I've only heard that. So I mostly listen to the radio, talk radio. I didn't have the occasion to see the video. How's the video? Yeah. Yeah. 598. Yeah, so how's the video? Say, I think you can hear him say it. I've seen a snapshot. Well, maybe I've seen the very first part of the video where they're like, but that artist is there. That's why all the body cameras are like, there had been anything, because people were making assumptions about what happened. It was really, like, this is going to be no actual.
Most are digital recorded.
Or they didn't come with it because it didn't go their side. Right? I know.
That's not taking a lot of right.
And I think, if the options make sure it's good for this.
Yeah, because she has to live in that community and she didn't know that was. Who knows if there really was or not? Anybody can get a cell phone these days. They're free, even if your voice doesn't have a cell phone. I don't really have. And I only have one. So it would be surprising to have that one case all over. Sometimes people are so shocked by what's going on, they don't think about taking their phone and recording it too. It is surprising there is no video.
Some people are so.
That one, I can't make a judgment call.
I'm sure, I asked you, you must have learned by it.
It's unfortunate that someone has
There we go.
sort of like ruined. Those are the unfortunate things about it. I don't know the details of it. Grand jury heard a lot of them. They heard 60 hours.
Welcome potato. Nobody was buying a
I thought it was poppy.
Oh, no, absolutely, but 60 hours, but they here for 60 hours.
But the simple change like that can the whole language. So.
Yeah, I know. When I was, the language is so different. When I was in Panama, and then you go to Honduras, it's totally different. And then you take that and you go to Puerto Rico.
Sometimes it just turn on as it really
real
depends
different.
on what's going on.
And then you go down to Mexico and stuff, and all of them, that little change in that.
I'll just kind of like speak,
English. You speak American.
I'm not used to having
People kind of, they kind of get good stuff. And then it depends on where you live in the States. But, if you go from here to the South.
I just went right in.
Hey, I'm telling you, we had some trouble trying to understand people in South Carolina.
Everybody, can we start back, please? Can we get back and get on our agenda?
I'll be right there, boss. Sometimes for your work.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. We'll go back on to the next item on the agenda, which is the police budget. And Elizabeth Weber's here tonight from the city. Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming. The chief will make the introduction.
Elizabeth has been working for us for 3 months and 4 days, I think. Is that
Yes.
about right? And you're going to find out, see how amazing it is what she's learned about our financial system. And I've asked her to give a pretty high level view of our finances because we need to use every meeting for the rest of the year, for all of 15, I should say, to learn everything that Elizabeth has learned in the last 4 months, 3 months. So. She has been held positions in finance, human resources, and has been a business manager and administrator for the last 8 years with the University of Oregon. And she is a pretty quick study. It's amazing what she's been able to do for us in just a short time she's been here. So I think you'll appreciate her vast knowledge she's going to share with us.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Commission, for inviting me to present on the budget. And like the Chief said, we're looking at kind of a high-level view. We're going to go from outer space down to your neighborhood view. I did take a look at the presentation that my predecessor, Greg Gibson, presented last May, I believe it was. Took a look at the questions you guys had and am trying to get you a little more refined information for what I think you were looking for. So let's go to the next slide, Jeremy. So we're going to start real high level here. The FY15 general fund budget for EPD is about $46 million. 83% of that, or $38 million, is personnel related. And then the remaining 17%, or just under $8 million, is materials and supplies. Go to the next slide, please. So the personnel portion of that budget, this was the 83%. This is kind of how that is divided. You can see that 72%, or $27 million, falls into straight payroll. And then we've got the rest, 28%, is what's considered fringe, and that's the health insurance, the retirement, other taxes we pay out, workers' comp and unemployment, and we have a compaction pay thing that we deal with here at EPD.
You say compaction pay. What is that?
I am very new to this and learning it, but we need to provide a difference between what the officers make and the sergeants make, the sergeant and the lieutenants. And because of the way the pay ranges work, we try to get some cushion in there. Okay. So there's a little bit of a bump to give people those cushions.
How many total employees in the EPD?
Our FTE right now is targeted at 330. So Jeremy, so the materials and supplies portion of our budget, it's less restricted obviously than the personnel, but it is not completely at our discretion. And you can see that 61%, sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing this far away, is central services rates, and I'll get into that in just a minute here. We also got some additional money in FY15 for labor contract expenses, and this will be this will help us offset any retro pay after the EPEA arbitration is over. And then we have the remaining M&S, which is contracts, equipment, and training at roughly $2.9 million. So I mentioned the central services rates. These are restricted money that we are required to hold out in our M&S, and we pay for all types of things that the city central services provides to us: liability and property insurance, our fleets, that's all of our vehicles, radio, as you know, we use them all the time, facilities, and that's our this building, the evidence control and FEU, or forensic evidence units, the comm center, places like that. And then we have information services, and that's all of our technology and computers. So the only that's roughly $5 million there if we round up. The one rate that is not included in these rates is the telecom rates. This year those are $81,000, and we need to come up with those out of the remaining M&S, which we'll get to, I'll show you. But those are slated to go up in FY16, just about $14,000 that we'll need to cover somewhere in our M&S. Materials and supplies is M&S. One of the things that Greg presented to you last May was a required underspending. So for several years now, the city departments are asked to underspend. At some point during the year, we get a notification that we're required to underspend. I look back at that, and it looks to average around 1%. The good news for FY15 is that we are not being asked to underspend at all. So that's a zero for us this year. But when we go back to the materials and supplies budget, which was $2.9 million, we take out those telecom rates, which are required to pay. We're now at $2.8 million, and we started at $46 million. So to give you some perspective of how this is funneling down. So I wanted to give you a little snapshot on what we do with that remaining materials and supplies. This is the allocation by divisions. We have the 6 divisions within, or units within EPD. Ops support, they're at 22%. That's a little misleading. And the reason it is a little misleading is because we put most of our contracts, these are contracts that we have with outside agencies to provide certain services, most of those sit within that ops support. So the actual discretionary money to ops support is much less than that, but because things don't fit out perfectly with patrol or investigations with those contracts, the easiest place to put it is in ops support. And then this gives you a perspective of the allocations by the expense type, and you'll see here these contractual services are at 42% of our budget. The animal services, which is the shelter, emergency vet, licensing, administration comes next. Uniforms, gear, equipment, ammunition next. Training is roughly 7%. And I have to go to my notes here because the type gets this whole. Regional radio, office and miscellaneous supplies, cell phones, telephone rates, and then just a miscellaneous of other there at the very end. So EPD does get additional funding outside of the general fund each year. All of these monies are restricted for a specific program or a project. The $1.7 million, the PSAP stands for Public Safety Answering Point, and that money all goes to our comm center, our 911. There's both personnel and materials and supplies in that.
Is that in addition to the $46 million?
Yes, this is all in addition.
That's on top of it?
Yes.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question about that?
Yep.
Is that money that's received from other municipalities for handling the 911 service at the comm center?
The PSAP is not. The PSAP is received from the state, and it's telecom money that, like, when you pay your phone bill, you're paying a percentage on that, and that comes from that.
Okay, thanks.
So then we have grants, and our grants vary from year to year. This year we'll have $428,000 to use, and we've got those this year for bomb team training and equipment, weapons replacement, DUII and speed enforcement patrol, and other things like that. The next 2 items are equipment replacement fund and the mini grants that we get from Central Finance and Information Services. We use this to do what it says, replace equipment, and to get new technology, to test out new technology. Our body cams first came from this funding. This is where the funding came from, to do the pilot, and we're going to run another pilot here in another month or so we get those up and running. Then we have charitable donations. This is money that was previously donated, and it's always donated for a specific purpose, such as the summer camps, the summer programs that the officers provide, animal services, 911 center, things like that. And then the last item up there is contract revenue. So this is restricted. It's money that we get back for providing different services to external things like the UO football games and the parades and safer schools, the officers in the schools. So looking ahead to FY16, what we have been told at this point is the base budget amount will stay steady. We will not see an increase in the base budget amount for any discretionary funds. There will be an increase in personnel expenses to cover regular merit increases, the EPEA arbitrated increases, and fringe. That money obviously will be restricted. We will see an increase in the rates to cover the new amounts there. That's restricted. And like I said, no increase for remaining materials and supplies. We will need to find a way to cover the approximately $14,000 in new telecom rates. We plan to be filling the officer and 911 vacancies that we have now. Grant income is always uncertain. We don't even put it in the budget until after the fiscal year started. And our budget plans are due in early January to Central Finance, so we budget way in advance for the following fiscal year. And that's what I have for presentation. So if you have questions, I'm happy to take those.
Jim, go ahead.
Did this budget also include all the 911 center?
Yeah, that piece, the 911 center is PSAP partly. It is partly general fund, and then there is partly money that comes in from the Lane Fire Defense Board. So they've got some pools of money that they dip into.
So on the slide that you had that had, I think it had 39% went to patrol, and where does the 911 center fall in that graph?
So they're in technical services.
Technical services.
And that
okay.
includes both the record center here and.
And what was the percentage on that one?
They have 11%.
11%?
Of the general fund, and then they have the additional through the PSAP.
And they're counted as part of the 330 some you said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jesse?
What's happening with health insurance and PERS?
The city is self-insured for the health insurance, and they've been able to maintain the rates fairly steady. And my understanding is that they do have a reserve pool, so in the last couple of years, they've been able to absorb some of the increase in rates. But the way our rates work is we are funded for them, and then they take them right off our budget. So if there's an increase, we get the extra money for the increase, and then we get the extra money taken out. So it kind of is a wash for us. PERS is, you know, anybody's guess. Some of the legislation in the recent years has bumped it up quite a bit, but.
Is it at a point where, 'cause there were a few years of all the costs were going up quickly and having big effects on budgets throughout the state, and then I recently read that Oregon's got more money than they expected to because health insurance had leveled off, and I'm not sure about what's going on with PERS, but
Yeah, and that's
is it
kind of what
leveling off period?
yeah, that's what I'm hearing from Central Services is that there is not any major increases in any of our the health insurance, the PERS, the liability insurances, risk type things. I'm not hearing any major increases there. So.
I have a question. In our comments tonight, someone was mentioning overtime costs, and I did not see that reflected on the screen. Is that included in like the patrol costs, or how do you figure the investigative ops overtime, and is it broken down in such a fashion?
It is. My understanding is that it is in the personnel budget. So we do budget a certain amount for the overtime, and we monitor that very closely. But it is across the departments.
Right.
There are some departments like ops support, for example, where I am, we don't have the need, we don't generally have, office of the chiefs in other place, we don't have, very minimal overtime at all, if any, so. But yes, it primarily hits patrol investigations. And others.
Do you have those figures? Are you able to put your finger like on what it's costing, so we could, the commission could have a report on that?
Sure.
You bet. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And who's next? Bill.
Okay, so at this point, we've got a $46 million direct budget and another $3.6 million roughly added to that. So we're at 49.6 for the total department. Is there any other funds that go into the department, or is that pretty much it?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, and so last I looked, we have about 180 officers on the street. So taking that and dividing the 49.6 divided by 180 gives us $271,000 per officer for the direct expenses for the officer himself or herself, and all support services, supervision, training, equipment, everything else that goes into it. So is that a fair figure to say that each officer on the street costs us $270,000?
I trust your math.
Okay, thank you.
It's not exactly accurate.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, the communications center serves most of Lane County, the great deal of Lane County in fire dispatch and 911 calls.
And so that's out of your budget? So
Not all of it. The general fund pays for some of it. But a great deal of that is reimbursed to our...
Okay, so we are sort of in a range of $250,000 to $270,000 per officer on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, thank you.
Thank you
for
kindly.
coming tonight.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it again.
Late night for you.
It's quite all right.
Yeah, very nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
Especially after only 3 months.
I'll do better next year.
That is an interesting calculation.
Yeah, we need to talk to.
What's that?
Yeah, I think about a year ago, we pushed about that figure too, so that's consistent
Yeah.
to about a year ago.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting calculation, a way to look at what it costs to directly provide the service.
Well, the reason that I brought it up, because I've sort of, over time, used that calculation, but it really does say, okay, is the use of police to solve certain kinds of social problems a good application of funds, or are there other ways that we could do it for less than $250,000 per officer?
Of course, in that conversation, we're not including in that number, we're not including the detectives we're talking about on-street police officers, right? Or is it detectives included?
180 is all of us.
Yeah.
It's actually 190, 191.
So it's gone up a little bit since the last time I looked. Yeah, but
well,
that still leaves you in roughly the same category.
Yeah, it's a big figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a great way to look at it because, and you can break that down to what it costs per hour and ask ourselves, well, do we want our officers scooping ice cream, or do we want them doing things that only police officers can do? And social concerns are among those.
Yeah.
So next, we're on the agenda, we have the issue of the interview questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Tamara, who's prepared this for us here and ready to talk about it.
Thank you. This issue was raised at our last November commission meeting. The interview committee that did the last round of applicant interviews had some suggestions for the commission on the standard interview questions. Of course, in the future, an interview committee, I mean, these aren't, this could always be changed in the future, but these were the suggestions. Adding number 4, why do you want to be on the police commission, and adding a score to that. Number 5, the police commission is a group of diverse individuals with diverse backgrounds who work together to make recommendations to the police chief and city council. Tell us some of your experience working with diverse groups with different viewpoints. Score 1 to 7. And then we found it sort of odd that number 6, do you have any questions for us, had a score attached to it. So we're recommending that not be scored. It's it was very subjective and score, I mean, it's subjective scoring anyway, but trying to score whether they have questions for us or not was just odd, so we're recommending that being taken out.
Okay, Jane?
Yeah, I'm looking up there, and I'm wondering, where did we get the 1 through 7? How does that, what is that about? What does that measure?
That's just scoring the applicants, and of course, we're just making a recommendation to the mayor.
Right.
Not even reaching agreement, that's just one unit of measure when those are added aggregately together to give the mayor, some difference between candidates that everyone on the group thought was, might be good at the job. In addition to that, we have the overall assessment that's taken into account. 1 through 7 is just what we've used. I mean, we can certainly use a different scale if a different scale makes sense to folks. I don't know about people that were on the interview committee, like
1 being very poor and 7 being the best,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But 1 through 10, it would be about the same as 1 through 10.
1 through 5.
1 through 5, yeah.
Would you rather see it 1 through 5? Does that make more sense? I mean,
I was just wondering because 1 through 7 seemed where did it come?
Arbitrary?
Yeah, what did it come from?
probably was.
What
Somebody
just like
proposed it and they
1 through
approved
5 or
it.
1 through 10.
Yeah,
Do we have any
Yeah, it's
suggestion
all
or a motion to
relative,
change
so-
that? I'll be happy to take one.
Motion, 1 to 10.
1 through 10.
I'll second.
I like 1 through 5.
Seconded by George. Motion by Joe Tyndall for 1 through, to change the scoring from
Yeah, I like
1
1
to
to
7
5
to
too.
1 to 10, and seconded by George Rode.
Oh, he likes fun.
Okay, any discussion on that?
I think 1 through
Jesse?
5.
Yeah, I agree. I'd narrow it down more. I tended to, my rankings are like 5, 6, and 7 anyway. Like, I'm not going below a certain number.
Okay.
Not in this group, you didn't. We've had other applicants in the past where
So-
It's public. I'm probably
we were
not
wondering
going
if you
to.
could score them a 0.
So do we,
Are
the
you trying to
question,
be a good guy?
the question is, do we see 1 through 10 as having a greater range to pick from, or do we see it as narrowing? Jim?
I kind of like the greater range because it makes for an easier way to differentiate between, especially this last time when they were, to me, so very, very close. I think it would have been very difficult to say, is 1 of 4, is 1 of 5, whereas if you have the option to say, I think it's a little easier to say 1's a 9, 1's a 10, or 1's an 8, or a 9, because it's just a little more range of a differentiation.
Okay, Tamara?
I like 1 through 5 just because normally when I've taken surveys, it's more in line with the, somewhat agree, somewhat agree, neutral, disagree, somewhat disagree, disagree. That's a 5-point scale. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, George?
Well, we can do 1 through 10, and Tamara, just double your number.
I really am not,
No, you don't
passionate
know
about
that?
either way, but
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of the motion to change the scoring from 1 to 7 to 1 to 10, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carried. So that's changed. Now we need a motion to change the questions to add the questions that are now on
I
the,
did have 2 items, because if we're going to amend it, we should probably correct these before we accept as amended.
You like the spelling?
we'll just say
Yeah,
typos
there's-
accepted. I don't think we need to go through.
Oh, okay, because, there was a typo.
Belabor the point.
typos accepted. All right, I like that. Okay, so we have a motion to change, to amend the
I'll make a
questions.
motion to amend the
George
questions.
Rhodey making the motion to
Okay, I guess we can discuss.
amend the questions,
I'll second.
seconded by Jesse. Discussion.
Okay.
Joe?
A couple things. On question number 2, I'd like to pull the word 3 out of it and just ask them, what do you think are the most critical issues? Because we were sort of pushing people for 3 of them, and I don't know that other people thought that was important.
Okay, Tamara.
So I've had the opportunity to be on quite a few of the interview panels over the time that I've been on the police commission. I don't think 3 is too many to ask. Some people, if you didn't give them a number, would come up with 1. Some people, if you give them 3, they might come up with 5. But, I mean, if they can't come up with 3 police issues with everything out there to choose from, you know, they're probably not going to get on the police commission anyway. So I don't think it's an onerous question to ask them for 3 policing issues that they think are the most important.
George?
I agree with Tamara. You need to ask specifically how many you want, and, you know, one of the things is, you know, how well do they follow instructions? And sometimes people don't hear what you say, and sometimes that makes them less desirable to have on it. Because I know some people would just say 1 and not come up with another one, and that's what I call a person who is not listening to the question. So I like a specific number. I'm not stuck on 3. It could be 2. It could be 4. Not 1, though.
Okay. Anybody else, any other discussion on this motion? All right, the motion is to amend the questions as printed with typos accepted. And all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much, Tamara, for your work on this, and thank you, committee, for the work that you did, the extra work you did to interview the candidates this last time. And I hope once council gets the letter that they will, in fact, go by your recommendation so we can have the best candidates on. The next one is.
I don't know if I'm out of order on just asking, since we're kind of talking about the interview and the questions, do we have a timeline for when?
We don't know when it's going to go.
Okay.
Council has to, yeah.
I know they have to, but I didn't know if you knew when they were going. Okay. Just wondered. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Sorry, Chief.
The next is the Chief's presentation, and Chief is here, so.
All right. I think you'll get it in the package.
We do.
Okay. Salem Police Department is considering building a new structure, and so we provided them with their blue ribbon task force on a tour of our building so they could see how it turns out when you take this route, refurbish an existing building. And then went to an awards ceremony. The Oregon Peace Officers Association issues or hands out probably 50 awards a year to police officers from around the state, and Aaron Johns received an award for his heroism in the shooting that occurred a year ago at Churchill High School. We graduated 2 recruits at the State Academy. One was in charge of the honor guard for his class, and the other one won the Victor G. Attia Award, which is the highest performing student in all categories, leadership and academics, general performance. And then I am on the KUGN morning show once a month, and KUZI interviews me about once a month. This last time we gave them a tour of the building and showed them the technology that we have in our interview rooms and other places, and also they get to see how the body-worn video cameras work and in-car video systems. And then I was on a panel with the City Club with Sheriff Turner and Chief Carolyn McDermott from the U of O Police Department, Chief Tim Doney from the Springfield Police Department, and Lieutenant Lane Hinkle, who's the OSP commander at the Springfield office. And we talked about racial profiling and bias-based policing. And then the Governor's Summit on disproportionate minority contact was out at LCC, and quite a few of us from around the country, around the county, that are involved in different services, and some elected officials were there for that. It was an interesting day. I always enjoy going to the NAMI dinner every year. I've spoken there a couple times. It is such a great organization. If you don't know anything about it, it'd be neat to have them maybe make a presentation sometime if you need to fill 20 minutes on one of your agendas. Anyway, if you don't know anything about NAMI, they're a resource for families that have a close loved one who has a mental health condition, and they provide all kinds of information and direction to families who are just confused and don't know why they're enduring this and don't know where to go. They almost every year, one of the speakers is someone who has a mental health condition, and this year it was just very entertaining. She did a great job, talked about her life and the struggles that she's had and what she does now as an artist, and she just did a really, really good job. And then in the news, these are just a few things. There's been a lot that's happened since this was produced, but you've heard about the cougar spottings at Hendricks Park. That's kind of exciting. And we've had this one death investigation that's listed here. This is the one on Jacobs where a mother was killed apparently by her adult son. We've had a string of robberies. There's another one today at a pizza place on Green Acres. Little Caesars, yeah, on Green Acres, armed robbery. This one also involved the threat of a firearm, but they didn't see one. 3 students were arrested at North Eugene High School for lighting some things on fire. Kind of a scary case. A woman was robbed in sort of a mugging type of incident out off of Barger, where the men that pulled up in a car started to drag her behind a dumpster. And so if she hadn't fought her way out of that, it could have been a lot worse than a robbery. And then this time of year, the computer scams seem to get a little bit worse than they are at different times of the year. So we do a lot of education about how people are trying to trick us out of our money over the internet and by phone calls and that sort of thing. And then on the hiring, you saw that Captain Meisel is on board. We've hired a record specialist. We're constantly hiring for call takers and dispatchers, and those are successful processes. The tough part is to get people to stay in that career for very long. The national average is probably, for tenure, is probably about less than 10. I've heard the figure of 4 years for the national tenure of someone who works in the 911 center. And we need to fill an executive administrative assistant position, another one out in the evidence control unit, and Tim Shuck has been given a job offer for the operations support division manager. Tim was in here a little bit ago. He supervises Elizabeth. And that's it. I'll go through the mapping.
The DLP, anybody have any questions on the DLP maps? Yes, Jim?
I notice it looks like there's a lot of thefts going on in Beat 1. Looks like it's about a third for the whole city. Out of 128, there's 43 of them happening in Beat 1, which kind of seems like that's a little unusual. I know that beat's not always real life, but that seems really heavy for there.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of shopping malls in that beat. So
That's
this
true.
type of year when there's thefts from vehicles and large parking lots. And then we'll see a bump in Kins Row area. And all it takes is one suspect to decide that's a good area to work in, and crime goes up.
And I know one of my employees lives in that beat, and it was like the day after I printed this, and I'd looked through it, and her car had been gone through. That she didn't have anything in it, fortunately. But when she came out that morning, the glove box was open, stuff was laying in the seat, and one of the doors was, at least no windows were broken in. So obviously, the door was left unlocked, so they could get in. That's what she figured. So it was an easy access, but they didn't have anything in there, fortunately. But
Yeah.
it's still kind of scary when you walk out and you can tell that your car has been gone through.
Yeah, and this isn't.
So I showed her this, and she goes, "Whoa, I guess I better."
Yeah, this is a fairly low reporting rate for this crime too, because if someone comes out and finds their car has been ransacked, the only thing missing is change in the ashtray, they don't call the police.
Yeah, and she wasn't going to. And so she said, "Well, maybe I should call." So
Yeah, I wish she would.
At least to let you know that something happened. Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions for Chief on this month's report or anything? Family?
So you mentioned about giving the tour for Salem Police Department for this building to see how it turns out when you refurbish. And how did it turn out when you refurbished compared to other options like building new? I mean, is it this facility, because of what it was before and how it was built, does it work out well?
Yeah, it's working pretty well. If you have unlimited funds, having a police department in the downtown core, I think, is better. Close to courts, close to all the other services that we work closely with would be more efficient. But the design for this has worked really, really well.
Because it was the right building to
It's
adapt.
the right building, yeah, for all the seismic requirements.
Well, and also, not every building has the underground parking, you can gate off and things like that.
Yeah, that's a benefit, that's true.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Joe?
Okay, well, not really a question. Going back to the first chief's activity, the City Club panel on racial profiling, I guess there were 2 sessions, and Dan Bryant recorded both of them, and we put them up as a City Club, and I have DVDs. If anyone is interested in either or both of those sessions, I'd be happy to make copies of the DVD for you. So we can do a show of hands, or got one for both of them, or both? Okay, anyone else interested?
I actually went to the website and listened to both of them separately, yeah. They were, like you said, 2 different sessions, so.
I did the website.
Okay, so I'll make a set for James for next time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Jesse.
You talked about having reduced the overtime due to court appearances. One thing I know they've got is court staff in the municipal court seems to have every officer's preferred times to show up in court. So if someone asks for a trial on a violation, speeding ticket, whatever, the staff says that's going to be on a Wednesday because it's with officer so-and-so. Is that a new effort, or is that something they've had?
It's new in the last 7 years or so.
Okay.
They are the police department and the municipal court are 2 separate organizations with separate, electronic systems and record-keeping systems. And in an effort to get overtime under control, we asked them to sync up their scheduling with officers' work schedules. So the traffic enforcement unit officers, they work during the day, and it works out pretty well that they go to court on certain days. But we have, 2/3 of our officers work during hours when court isn't in session. So that's always going to be on overtime. There's nothing really that we can do about it. And it's not affordable for the court to have a night court. We haven't made that pencil out yet. It's a neat idea, and our officers would like it. They'd rather be going when they're working, because then they have to, they wouldn't be at work all the time.
Does the traffic, I would think that the traffic patrols on the motorcycles are the most common ones that go to court, though?
I don't think so. I'm not sure I can answer that.
Okay.
There are more patrol officers on the streets, so by sheer number, they end up writing more citations.
But if it's important. we
No,
can
it's
find
not. I
out.
just kind of getting a feel.
But yeah, they have quite a bit of court time. You'd probably know. Do you have a sense for that? Is it?
Carol probably.
Yeah, Carol.
Yeah, Carol. Where's Carol? She left.
Unless they're there for me, I don't know why they're there.
Yeah, Carol absolutely would know. That's true.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm wondering, let's say that we do eventually implement the body-worn video thing. Do you think that that's going to have an impact on the amount of time for officers in court, especially if there's some kind of mechanism, a pre-hearing mechanism to have people review the tapes if they're going to go?
Yeah, it might. I really don't know. What I can assure you, though, is that it will reduce our officers' efficiency.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, when we added the in-car video, before we had video, an officer would go to a call, they'd write a report, they'd arrest somebody, they'd just write the report. There's nothing to reference other than their own notes. But it takes time to upload the video, and then it takes a lot more time to review the video as they write their reports. They'd never want to write a report that's inconsistent with the video.
Yeah.
When all they have to do is rely on their memory, they write the most accurate report they can based on what they have, but it takes more time when they're referencing that.
Okay, so that's a new consideration that's sort of been added to the discussion at this point.
And then just managing the equipment, when you consider that $250,000 per officer per year, that's just going to grow because someone will need to manage all that data. When we looked at in-car videos, the estimate, we came up with after watching the Seattle Police Department, Seattle had a fully implemented traffic platoon, it's probably 100 officers, I don't know. So it was pretty similar to what we were trying to do. And then also the Yakima Police Department, they had 80 patrol officers, and they had in-car video in each of their cars. We thought that it might take about half a full-time employee just to manage the data and provide defense discovery and those types of things. It's probably more than that. It's probably a full FTE now for us, and it'll be more when we have body-worn video because there'll be so many more files to take care of. So it's the cost is, an employee is $100,000 a year when you look at fully loaded benefits. And then however we choose to store it, it could be $40,000 to $100,000 a year for storage. Maintenance, that's probably really...
Yeah, I don't think you have to get anywhere near that high in terms of cost. I think there's a lot of lower cost options to do that, but the employee time is going to be significant. So I guess it's a trade-off of benefits thing on that one.
Yeah, completely.
And during the discussion we had, in the earlier discussion, we heard a lot of sort of positive benefits on it. I guess it's a longer discussion that hasn't completed itself, or at least in my opinion, on that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Go ahead. I thought
and then there's the privacy questions. The Portland Police Bureau is working on some legislation for this next session that would allow officers to notify people at the first opportunity that they're being recorded for body-worn video. Right now the statute only gives us that flexibility with in-car video. And then the public records law would make all these private videos in people's home, these videos that will be taken in people's homes, there'll be a public record that in many cases will be, could be released. So they're asking that the legislature reconsider the public records law so that those can be protected.
But would that prohibit others from looking at it that needed it? Or I guess the legislation has to be written to allow people who were involved in the case to be able to...
Yeah, criminal discovery is different, and of course in civil cases, those would be different cases. This is just the public records.
Okay, sorry Jesse, you were next.
Oh.
All
right. Just thinking about the cost on the body-worn video and how ICVs work right now. I get a police report and the officer's already written that there was an ICV and there's a reference number. Just the amount of time that would take for the officer to do. And then, so I immediately shoot an email to the city prosecutor saying I want that ICV so I can see what's on it. And she's got to burn that to a CD and then send it back to me. And then just multiply that by every single contact, because there's no way I can not order the video for something for one of my cases. It's going to be reviewed. So the more automation that can go into that process, talking to the right kind of technology savvy person who can figure out, because I know there doesn't have to be, humans don't have to perform every one of those steps. That cost is significant. Right now it's significant and a lot of work. I know that the person in the city prosecutor's office who does it, she gets a lot of requests, and she's just, so what she does all day is burn CDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you'd like to do is have a Jesse Lorkey file that they could drop a file into, or enable you to see a file without seeing the entire database of files. And that could be done with just a few clicks of a mouse. That would be
The
much
DA's
better.
office does it more that way.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we know.
But if it's a municipal court case, then the city prosecutor does?
Yeah. And like in sheer volume of numbers, the city prosecutor's office probably does magnitudes, numbers more than the DA's office. I'm not positive about that, I'm just guessing. But
Yeah, I'd love to figure that one out.
Okay, any questions? If not, we're moving to commissioner comments. Go around the table. Since I started at that end, I guess I'll start at this end. Jesse, do you want to start? Closing comments, if you have some, if not, pass.
No, I'll pass.
Okay. Yeah.
Something I neglected to do in my earlier comments was to thank all the public that were here. I thanked comments from Joe and James, but I didn't thank the public, or maybe at least they didn't think that I thanked them, and I really didn't. I felt bad about it after Jesse didn't thank me. I knew I forgot something. But I did really appreciate all the comments that came in today. It was nice to have a pretty packed room with people listening and watching what we were doing. It made me feel good that we have some interest from the public, and I definitely want to thank all of them that commented. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's been raised a couple times, the question of some kind of a policy on the public videotaping officers. I think that discussion has come up several times, and I would like to see us complete that. So I'd like to suggest that as a possible future agenda item, and because I think it's going to keep coming up until we deal with it. So it may be worth doing. And overall, I thought this was there was a lot of really good information that came out in this meeting. It was very helpful for me and to everybody who contributed. Thank you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to come here and listen to all the comments and stuff and soak up a lot of more knowledge and stuff. I really do appreciate that. This time, the public comments or the public was fairly large. Larger than I've seen in a while, which is a good thing. People are coming around there voicing their opinions and stuff. I think that sometimes we have to make sure that when we deliver the message, that we deliver the full message and not just snippets and stuff, so people can take and run with it how they want to. Going back to what you said, in particular about the way the chief had expressed it, it's police are being video all the time and stuff, which is obviously true. So maybe there's a better way that we need to make sure that the public and stuff understands that, hey, that's your camera, you can do what you want to do. However, there are times when, you can be too close, and the officer has a right to their safety as well as your safety. So it works both both ways and stuff. So I would like to wish everyone a very pleasant Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. May God bless you all, your families, and good health to everyone and your families in the coming years to come. And that's it.
Thank you.
First thing, what was the new captain's name, last name?
Meisel, M-I-E-S-E-L.
M-I-E, what is it?
M-I-E-S-E-L.
Thank you. I just need to bring that back.
Sherry.
This group is becoming family. I'm really looking forward to coming to these meetings now, and I appreciate, and Joe, I'm with you 100%. I really think there needs to be a policy that on, the video, so sometimes, at least I get the feeling, and particularly on the Citizens Review Board, that when there is a police officer has all these different focusing on the subject, the subject, and the crowd starts gathering around, to glance back at the crowd, to glance back at the person, it would be a real scary situation. And I would love to be able to have, the definition in well-established and maybe even publicized so you can say, you know, I tell my dogs, in your hole, but, you know, back 10 feet or whatever, so it's a, you know, back, and people know how far back to get.
Yeah.
And I think it would make the officer's job safer and easier, instead of an arbitrary, you know, back. How far is it? I keep thinking of you. Off you go, you homeless. Where to where? But back, you know, how far back? So I would love to have that be a policy. Well, I don't know if there's a policy now, but I think it would be nice to have it defined and to be able to make it public to a degree. And I thank you all, and I wish you incredible holidays too.
A couple of things I meant to mention when you asked about what we've been doing following after the Ferguson incident. There's been a lot of activity around the country. You know, you heard about the president's new program to develop a 21st century policing model and money for body-worn video systems. The other thing that's happened is police chiefs like me are wondering, well, who is doing all this well? And places like Ferguson are even more desperately concerned with how things are done well. And so we're hearing about places like Richmond, California, where they've had fewer and fewer officer-involved shootings and fatalities. One of the things they do, that they've got a great community engagement effort, but they also train on firearms every month, which is, I've never heard of an agency that trains that often, and they train on accuracy and accountability. So I'd like to hear more what that's about. But this is a department that has huge community support, where for generations it's been police clashing with the community. So that would be interesting to learn more about. And the Chicago Police Department and Yale have had a training program on law enforcement legitimacy, where they're teaching the police officer how to have an encounter with somebody so that the individual walks away thinking that was a legitimate thing for the police to be doing, rather than saying, why is that cop picking on me because I'm, name it, you know, whatever. And then Washington State Police have revamped their, or not Washington State Police, the Police Academy has revamped its training program so that it's built more around this legitimacy model, finding a way in every encounter, every contact with the community, violator, arrested subject, victim, whatever, to explain who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, what we intend to achieve, so that you know, we're building that trust and confidence with the community. So that's the scanning that we as a department are doing, and the kinds of conversations we're having internally.
I think that's just one more example, Chief, of what I was thinking is how proactive you are with the department instead of being reactive. A lot of these things that have happened, and even some in the history of the EPD, has been reactive instead of proactive. I think getting body cams and looking at how other communities are doing this is proactive. You're doing it before something happens instead of when something happens, figuring out how to do something different. And I think that is a big difference between how you run this department and how other chiefs run their departments, and that makes a big difference. One of the other things is on videotaping police. It occurs to me that people are more emboldened when they have a camera in their hand than when they're not. And the real thing about interfering with police isn't about whether someone has a camera in their hand or not. It's about whether they're interfering with police or not. The videotaping part, I'm guessing there are situations when you don't want people videotaping. If there's been a homicide and it's not yet barricaded off, or there's been a serious car accident with an injury, and people are very voyeuristic. I think that's the word these days. Also, they take pictures of things and video footage of things and post them online. Those are the only circumstances I can think of where police might ask someone not to videotape, not because of something that they're doing, but because if that's your loved one laying there, you don't want that pictures of that tragic circumstance out on the internet. So I think it's two things. I think it's one is videotaping when is that inappropriate? And I don't know that we need a policy on it. I think we need to look at what's already out there in the police operating manual as far as policies that apply to this situation. And if anything, I would think it would be maybe a change in training for officers or protocols for officers about how they communicate to the public when they want them to get back. Because, George made a great point about what does that mean? When when an officer tells you to get back, how are you supposed to know what that means? And if someone's being smart about it, they might take one step back, and then they'd have to be told again when the officer intends them to get, further back. So I don't know that that's a policy is what I'm trying to say. I think we should look at what is in existing policies that that might apply to the situation and go from there. The other thing is, I think it would be good, since the police commission, like I mentioned, have looked at I don't know what the name of the policy is that deals with chokeholds. I think it's called holds, maybe. I think it's holds in general, maybe. I know that we looked at a policy about that. Maybe Jeremy could include it in the Friday update if you're doing those. Carter would send out a Friday update so that everyone can see it. And then if folks want to, talk about it more, we could, have that raised in a future commission meeting. I think that'd be good for everybody to see it, so sending it out might be useful for that. And I wanted to thank Jeremy for being here and helping us with our meeting today.
So, yeah, I'm going to input in discussion since Civilian Review Board has asked, the Citizens Review Board has asked us to look into the issue of filming police and issue, there was another issue with the hair, grabbing someone by the hair or something. But I think we'll add it in an agenda for topic for discussion. I agree with Tamara. I don't know that we need to formulate a policy on dealing with people who film police. That's, if you started going down that road, you could start on a number of things that people do that involve the police, but maybe we don't need a policy on everything. But I will say I witnessed a video the other night on the news, and it was the case in New York where a Jewish student in Hoover Center was stabbed in the head by a deranged person who was still having a knife and not obeying police orders to put the knife down, and unfortunately, tragically lost his life as well. But when I was watching, what I was noticing was this person that posted this video was at times only a few feet away from the suspect holding the knife. And I'm thinking, here's an officer with a gun pointed at this guy with a knife, and here's the guy with the camera closer than the officer to the suspect. Now, who's going to get stabbed first? And at what point does your interfere with the officer trying to make you get back so he can save your life, keep you from getting injured, while he's trying to also keep an eye on this guy who might stab him and kill him? So I think there has to be some circle of protection here that we have to designate, that you can't come within this bounds when the police are taking some action that's going to cause injury to you or another innocent bystander because you're inside this circle. So my feeling is it does need to be discussed, and we'll hash those things out, Joe. It's a concern of yours, it's a concern of the Civilian Review Board. So thank you all again. I think Jeremy has an announcement he wanted to make.
I do, thank you. I meant to mention earlier, Claire Surratt, she did call, or Commissioner Surratt did call earlier, let me know that she wasn't going to be able to make it today. She wanted me to extend her apologies to the rest of the commission. So
I saw Mike Clark at lunch, and he said he didn't know whether he'd be here, so I'll start bugging him on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, seems like you've got a thing going there. So thank you again, Jeremy. Jeremy fell right into this position like he'd been in it all the time. So actually, a very smooth transition. Thank you very much for keeping everything going and keeping the commission on track here. I appreciate it very much. Again, I'd like to echo what James said. Everyone have a very Merry Christmas or Happy Holiday, whatever you celebrate, and enjoy. See you next year.
Thank you.
Actually, Jeremy, your weekly thing that you put out, I guess it was last week. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's the first time I've seen you smile tonight. Good job.
This meeting's over.
Yeah.
Okay. I get to go and see Wayne showed up again.
See what?
Wayne has showed up again.
Oh, God, let's hope not.
Oh, it's going to be around for a couple more months.
Yeah, I know.
On your emails a day. You know how it goes.
Well, just throw that right away.
I know.
Yeah, don't have to write. They wrote down.
See, I don't know if the camera roll. Better.
My husband.
How you doing?